The way we treat others matter, and how we see an outsider is something God looks at. Just like in the story of Ruth, Ruth was an outsider by all regards, but she was shown grace and kindness by someone who didn't look to the law. They didn't look to the standards set by culture or society. They looked at the heart, and they were used by God and to show God's mercy, God's grace, and to ultimately show the love of a loving Father. Welcome to the Truth Revealed podcast. I am your host, Dylan Poindexter. We are so excited. We are on episode 9 of the Truth Revealed podcast. If you don't know me, like I said, my name is Dylan Poindexter. I'm the host, and we are so excited that you are listening. This is the Truth Revealed podcast, where we are the truth takers. That is what we've kind of deemed this community. We are all truth takers because we are called to take the truth, to go and make disciples of all nations, to speak the truth to them, to show them the truth. And the Truth Revealed podcast is a Bible-based podcast where we have real Bible conversations every other Sunday at 8:30 a.m. And you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on any podcast streaming platform like Spotify Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Alexa, TuneIn Music, Overcast, Pod Hosting, and so much more. Check the link in the description, and you can find everywhere that you can listen to this absolutely for free. We're so excited about today's episode. Today, for our topic, I want to talk about this: the outsider on the inside. The outsider on the inside. And today I want to read you just a couple of verses in Ruth chapter 2. And just to kind of give some backstory of the story, Ruth was married to Naomi, or later to be known as Mara, Naomi's son, and they fell ill and they died, and they no longer have relation, right? So like my wife obviously is the daughter-in-law to my mother. Well, in Ruth 1, it talks about how Naomi and Ruth return with their two daughter-in-laws. She was moving to a new place, back to Judah. And Naomi says to her two daughters-in-laws, it says in Ruth 1 verse 8, it says, "But on the way, Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, 'Go back to your mother's homes, and may the Lord reward you for your kindness to your husbands and to me. May the Lord bless you with the security of another marriage.' Then she kissed them goodbye, and they all broke down and wept." So both daughters said, "No, we want to go with your people." But Naomi insisted and said, "No, you need to go. Like, I can't give birth to any more sons who would grow up to be your husband. So like, there's no point. Like, go back to your parents' house. Go before you're too old to get married again," and all this stuff, right? So Orpah, which is the other daughter-in-law, kissed her mother-in-law and she left. And Ruth clung tightly, and she's like, "Look, I am not going. I'm not leaving. Don't ask me to leave you. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Wherever you die, I will die. There, I will be buried with you." So Naomi, basically, they're like, "Look, I appreciate that. Oh my gosh, you're amazing. Let's go." So Ruth 2, it picks up verse 1. It says, "Now there was a wealthy and influential man in Bethlehem named Boaz, who was a relative of Naomi's husband Elimelech. One day, Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, 'Let me go out into the harvest fields to pick up the stalks of grain left behind by anyone who is kind enough to let me do it.' Naomi replied, 'All right, my daughter, go ahead.' So Ruth went out to gather grain behind the harvesters. And as it happened, she found herself working in the field that belonged to Boaz, the relative of her father-in-law, Elimelech. While she was there, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. "The Lord would be with you," he said. "The Lord bless you," the harvesters replied. Then Boaz asked for his foreman, "Who is the young woman over there? Who does she belong to?" And the foreman replied, "She is the young woman from Moab who came back with Naomi. She asked me this morning if I could gather grain behind the harvesters. She had been hard at work ever since, except for a few minutes' rest in the shelter." So Boaz goes over and says to Ruth, "Listen, my daughter, stay right here with us when you gather grain. Don't go to any other fields. Stay right behind the young women working in my field. See which part of the field they are harvesting and then follow them. I have warned the young men not to treat you roughly. And when you are thirsty, help yourself to the water they have drawn from the well." Ruth fell at his feet and thanked him warmly. "What have I done to deserve such kindness?" she asked. "I am only a foreigner." Boaz says, "Yes, I know, but I also know about everything you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. I've heard how you left your father and mother in your own land to live here among complete strangers. May the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge, reward you fully for what you have done." And I'm going to stop there today. But you see what I find so funny about this. Ruth was a Moabite. So just basic backstory, the Moabite people, like they were not in the culture that Naomi and Boaz were in. They did not know anything in terms of what you were allowed to do and what you weren't allowed to do. So back in the day, in Hebrew day, Jewish culture, it was so strict on what you could do and what you could, how you could harvest. There's a lot of law in Leviticus that talks about harvesting and when you're allowed to harvest and what you're allowed to harvest and all these things. And Ruth knows none of that. She is just coming here because, look, I'm not going to leave my mother-in-law. I'm staying here. So she is moved off into complete outsider territory for herself. But see, all of them, they look at her as an outsider. They don't see her as one of their own, and yet she's working in their fields. But you see, Ruth didn't know anything that Boaz, who is the owner of this field, she doesn't know what she has to be doing according to Levitical law. She didn't know what was right and what was wrong. And Boaz just says, "Look, follow the people in this field. You don't go to any other field. You don't go under anybody else. You come and you listen and you talk to me." He gives her a place to eat. He gives her a place to drink. He gives her a place to rest. And he says, "You're doing a great job and I appreciate you." And see, what I love about this story is God shows us his heart through his servant Boaz. See, he shows us his heart through this story to let us know that God cares for the outsider. He doesn't hold them back because, maybe they don't fit the right stereotype or they don't fit the perfect religious belief system. They don't fit every little Christian checkbox that we all like to check off in our life. But you see, Ruth was an outsider on the inside. She was only an outsider on the inside because when she stepped onto the field under Boaz, she was considered family. She was considered one of them. She was considered home. And that's how it should be. And that's how we as the church have to be with other people. It doesn't mean, don't get me wrong, don't take this and twist my words here. But it means that we love the outsiders. I've said it before. You hate the sin, but you love the sinner. And the problem is, I think too many times in our culture is we will deem and demoralize and condemn the sinner instead of convicting the sin. And the Bible says there's only one person who can convict, and that's the Holy Spirit. He can convict anybody at any time, at any place. But God calls us to show mercy, show love, show kindness, just like Boaz did. He could have turned her away and said, look, I know what you're trying to do. Like, I get it, but I'm sorry. You don't know any of these people. You don't know what we're supposed to do. Like, you don't know the codes. You don't know any of that. How many times have we said something? How many times have we maybe looked at somebody in church and said, well, she's not dressed right, or man, he shouldn't have this many tattoos, or he shouldn't be doing this, or he shouldn't be doing that. And again, to put these people in a place of elevation is wrong if there's active sin in their hearts. But to judge people based on an outward appearance, the Bible speaks very highly against that. This is God looks at his heart. See, David was a man after God's own heart, but David messed up. He killed a man. He slept with the dude's wife. David was not an innocent person. We all like to talk about David who killed Goliath, but we don't want to talk about the David who slept with Bathsheba. Everybody in the Bible that was used by God had a past. Some of them were used by God and then had a now, and then God had to save them again. All of the disciples, they weren't right. They weren't what the Pharisees. He would have, if Jesus really cared about all that, he would have came and he would have chosen 12 Pharisees and said, "You are my people. Let's go." But you see, God came to show us that he could love everyone without affirming sin. He could love them. He could love the sinner and show them the freedom that God can offer them. Not to say, hey, you're doing great. The sin you're in, hey, stay in that, but you're welcome here. No, hey, you're welcome here. And while you're here, we're going to show you the freedom and the power and the mightiness of God Almighty. And we're going to show you how you can break free from the sin that you're in. You see, Ruth was an outsider on the inside. She was an outsider on the inside of a land that she didn't know. She was an outsider on the land in a culture and a society that she didn't know. So what am I telling us today as truth takers, as Bible-believing believers? It's time for us to be a Boaz. It's time for us to be the Boazes to somebody else. It's time for us to take a stand and say, God, who's my Ruth? Who do I need to step in and say, come here? Yes, harvest here. Do this here. You always have a place to eat, a place to sleep, a place to drink, a place to call home, to rest when you're not going home. Who can we call on and say, hey, I want you to come with church with me? Well, I don't think I can go to church because of all the messed up things I've done. Okay, well, that's, I'm sorry you feel like that, but you can come to church even though you've messed up. Church is not a place for healthy people. It's a place for sick people. And what you need to know is I've got things in my life that I'm messed up on, and God's still giving me grace. You see, Boaz wasn't one to say, oh, look, we're all perfect children of God and we make no mistakes and we do no wrong. You're not welcome here because you're an outsider. So today, let's check ourselves. Let's check our stance. Let's check our platform. Let's check our box that we stand on. And maybe you're in listening and you say, well, Dylan, I check all those boxes. That's great. But I can guarantee you at one point in your life, you didn't check every single one. So somebody at 4 days of Christianity is not going to have as many boxes checked as somebody with 40 years of experience, 40 years of God's love and grace and conviction to show them the right way to go. Too many times we want to discredit people and we want to push people out and we want to say, well, we shouldn't have them here. No, you should have them there. You should have them there. How do I know a church is growing? How many people I see get saved? How many baptisms are happening? How many people are joining these programs that are taking them out of the sin they're in? You can have a congregation full of people that they know they're going to heaven, and they're great and they're awesome, and God's with them and they've done no wrong, and that's awesome. You should have those. But I believe that God called us for the sick too. See, God called us for the outsider. What is our job? It's to bring an outsider on the inside. I want to say thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. We are on so many social platforms. If you haven't already, go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us. Go check the link in the description, in the link below. Go like our Instagram page. Follow us on Facebook. Go check us out. Go tag us if you are listening, or just go tag us, and we'd love to see how this podcast is impacting your life. And you can hashtag truth takers on there, and we'll see that, and we're so excited about that. If you haven't already, we have our audio streaming platforms, all podcast streaming platforms. Check the link down in the description. You can see where all we're listed, but some major ones: Spotify Podcasts, Amazon, Alexa Music, and Apple Podcasts. Those are just the big ones. Podzinger, Overcast, Pod Hosting. There's so many more that I couldn't even name them all, even if I tried. But I want to say thank you so much for all your love and support for this series as we dive into real Bible conversations, exploring the Bible and bringing the truth, making it revealed, and bringing it and taking it to the world. I do want to say we do have a monthly membership paid alternative platform. If you are a member of that, or if you're interested in doing that, you can check the link in the description. Go to our podcast hosting platform page, and you can see where more information about that. It goes for, I believe, as little as $3 a month, and this is again completely optional. This podcast will always be free. These episodes are never going to be costing you anything. The paid platform is only for a special emoji and some extra gimmicks that the pod hosting platform gives you if you become a monthly supporter. And eventually we're going to be having our monthly supporters have exclusive content, like extra podcast deep dive topics. Maybe if you want a longer session of a topic, if I didn't get to finish my topic or my lesson, then we'll have a deep dive one, live Q&A, stuff like that. So dynamic content, stuff like that, is going to be going on the paid. We're trying to work on that, so we're super excited about that. So if you're interested, please click the link in the description. Like I said, go figure that out. And thank you so much for all your support. Please make sure you subscribe and share, and we look forward to seeing and hearing what God is going to be doing through this message, through your life. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.